success, you always tell me, was never enough. It never satisfied the depth of your soul. So maybe you can expand a little bit, because you're one that has gone really into this apex of success, but somehow have found that it was never enough.
Yeah. I don't know how many of you have heard of the arrival fallacy. It's this thought that if I just get that, or if I just do this, or if I pursue this, and once I check off that box, I'm gonna arrive and I'm gonna feel amazing, and it's gonna feed me and fill me somehow. That never happened for me. You'll hear a little bit more about my story as a psychologist. I went on to treat children with autism before people even knew what autism was. My brother thought I was an artistic teacher for the longest time. I was like, no, it's autism. It's a real problem. And for me, it was no amount of people that I even helped, and I was doing good, ever really feed what I was really hungering for. It's fleeting. It's like chasing the wind when you're chasing after success. So tonight, we want to explore not settling for success as the world has taught us. We're here on this planet for more than success. But open your mind to exploring moving from success to what we're going to talk about, significance.
Maybe you can kind of share your story a little, and my prayer is that his story would, the Holy Spirit would use it and really convict us, equip us, and inspire us.
Early in my life, it was about survival. So back in 1975, this beautiful woman, my mom, met my dad, who's a farmer. My mom was a city girl, and everybody was sent to essentially a death camp. It was a Cambodian genocide that claimed 2 million lives. They married in about 75 or 77, and then had me in 79 when the war broke out. And so it was kind of now or never. I was 2 months old, and through the work that I'm doing now with the coach, the trauma I'm realizing still impacts me till today. What I experienced at 2 months of age. I experience and can sense my mom's fear as she was running through all the landmines and carrying me on her hip. And not to get too graphic, but literally crawling over carcass and bodies that have exploded from the landmines as we're escaping on our way to Thailand. And so that was really how I entered the world. We were eventually sponsored by the Red Cross to go to the Bronx, New York, and 4 families in a small apartment. New York's way too cold for tropical people, so we eventually migrated to Long Beach in the early 80s. It's a theme of survival. I escaped death in the camp. I escaped death once again the night before I left for college. I had left the party. It wasn't even that late, like 9 o'clock at night or something, and a car came from behind really fast. I thought he was going to rear end me. And then another one to my left. And then all that I know next is there's a sawed-off shotgun literally in my face. It's like one of those moments where you just freeze in time. And God saved me. I escaped death once again. And then also early in my childhood, when I was in my doctoral program as a psychologist, you have to go through therapy so you can experience it firsthand as a patient. And these memories started resurfacing when I remember abuse surfacing. And so I went through a really dark period to finish school. So there's just a tremendous theme of fear. With that trauma, it propelled me to just be super obsessed with getting out of an environment that was harmful. So I went off to college, and I wanted to essentially control my fear by just outworking myself. I said, you know what? If I can get into a better neighborhood, maybe with one of those guard gates, I'll never, ever have a gun pulled on me again. And so out of fear, it drove me to create my first company out of my kitchen. Before my first son was born, we gave birth to the business at the same time. It was a really hard time. And when I gave birth to, it's called Behavioral Health Works. We treat autism. And at that time, I started the company because out of fear, I was never a very good employee. I never made Employee of the Month. I don't want to start a career and have someone be in control of letting me go. I'll start a business. And so the success came, but I worked myself to death. My brother would find me lying on the ground out of dehydration. This is I highly don't recommend this. And it was an obsession. It was more than workaholism. I never cheated on my wife, but my business was my mistress. because I received the accolades, the affirmations. I was helping families. We had thousands of therapists that we trained across 15 states. And I hit burnout. And I couldn't even leave. This is not one of those things where you can resign and go, peace, I'll give you 2 months, I'm out. I had to go find professional private equity to come in to take it over. And so that's a whole process in itself. And so that's from survival to success. And then thirdly, it wasn't until I built a home a few doors down from Kobe. I had the cars, I did everything. And I sensed God saying, hey, you're not to be rooted here. And I knew that meant that I was supposed to go back to Hawaii. The story is pretty crazy. I sold a house, I sold everything, and we didn't have no place to go. We didn't have a home to come to. My name is Dom, and that morning, he said, I'm going to teach you to live in freedom. You are going to be a freedom.
Yeah,
and
before he was called what? What was your name?
Oh, everybody knows me as Rob.
Rob.
Yeah?
Douk
Yeah.
Rob.
So you guys know me as Dom because I re-entered Hawaii back with that freedom. And since then, I've just been on this crazy quest to learn about how God's created us, how God's created our mind, our body, and our spirit, and how it interacts. I've even gone back to school to study all this stuff. And it's fascinating to connect the science with theology and really uncover what we feel we're on the brink of really releasing something that doesn't exist. Kind of like how autism wasn't a treatment that was recognized by the medical healthcare community and the plans. We are on the verge of bringing coaching in a manner that connects what I call neurobiotheology. And that's how I've been living, and that's the art of surrender. and the art of surrender is where you lead to real significance because you're emptying yourself out so God can reign supreme. You're emptying yourself out so he could be the Almighty. And the power is from him, no longer our control.
You talked about burnout. That's something that some people here will encounter, or maybe they have encountered.
Yeah.
And as a psychologist, it's something that is, sometimes doctors are the worst patients.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you think you could kind of outbeat things. So we're focusing on this theme from success to significance. Success is your focus on building things for yourself. And significance is allowing God to build through you. Super powerful, so different. Because the way you operate is very different. For golfers out there, you don't hack at the ball. If you're more fluid, you use your muscle properly, that ball's gonna do its thing with the right club. And I think being in rhythm and in tune with God is the same thing, right? As we're intimately involved in understanding him and his heart, there's more trust. And then you get to see him show up. Burnout is when we rely on ourselves. I was going hard. For me, my mentality as an underdog who grew up in poverty, I remember my mom said this. She said, hey, I can't afford a bike, but if you run, you'll get there, at the same time. You know what I mean? Don't walk to school. You got to run because we can't afford a bike right now. And that was always my thing. I was like, okay, I'm going to start a company. I'm just going to outwork everybody. I'm not a competitive person, but it was always in me. And that leads to burnout. So that's why the paradigm shift from success to significance is the key. God's the antidote to burnout. If you're aligned with him, you're focusing more on aligning to his goals and his values and where his heart is and where he's hurting.
Speaking to some of the younger entrepreneurs or the people who have God dreams in their hearts, how do you really discern if God's on it or not?
I think it does start with being intimate enough with him to know where he's working. Because God never stops working. And that's the other thing that combats burnout is we think, oh my God, if I don't get to that email, the office is gonna go on fire or something. That's the enemy getting us in this cycle of entrapment and enslavement to what might be a good cause. So the paradigm shift has to be, hey, you know what, God, you do all the work while I'm asleep. So please let me lean on you and you bring the right people. He loves it when we plan and we need laborers, right? We do work, but you don't do it to exhaustion because you're allowing and leaning on him for the secret sauce. And that is the journey that I really want to impart tonight, is to not settle. I'm like even more excited for young entrepreneurs right now entering a new stage of growth in entrepreneurship right now with all the tools that are available. And God is on the move, man. Like, he's on fire here on the island, and what's happening, the revival it's broken loose. He is ready. And so you don't want to miss out. You could be pursuing things that you think is what you need to do, and the ego gets in the way, so you're just hammering and doubling down on that, when he's down the street doing all the stuff that you missed out on, when you could have participated. Because Abba Father talks to us very candidly, like how we talk to one another, but we have to be around him enough to know what he's up to and what he's building.
Speaking to established marketplace leaders or entrepreneurs, how do you move into this place of surrender? What does that look like?
Yeah. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs also, and the first diagnostics that happen is that entrepreneurs tend to be in the way for that next stage of growth. And that's why when you plan for mega massive growth, it's always the entrepreneur, and it's usually the control. So what I would encourage is, when was the last time you saw God at work, literally, and you saw his heart for your employees or your clients? When was the last time? So I'm going to share a story. When trouble hits and the protocol was to get an attorney involved, we had the audacity to say, hey, the Bible says we should just take the battle to the sky. And he showed me this image of how, I think it's a hawk or an eagle, you don't fight the snake on the ground, because the snake has the opportunity to wrap you up. And we're sons and daughters of the Most High. We don't fight on the ground. We take everything to heaven. And so what we did was very unconventional. There was this man that was an attorney that was really upset. I said, Richie, you know what? I think he needs prayer. Richie goes over and prays over him, lays hand all over his house, his wall, without him knowing, right? And then he calls him. And to our surprise, this guy just needed a phone call, and he needed to hear somebody on the other line. Because I said, this guy must be going through something. Let's approach this differently, not fire with fire. So we prayed, and that was the discernment we got from God. So I think for you established businesses, allow God into kind of like what we started out tonight with. Let's be open. Let's try something new.
How do you discern in terms of, are you striving with a spirit of performance, striving on your own strength, or really co-laboring with the Lord?
Recognizing that he doesn't work on your timing. And so there's character development that is worth more than millions that he may be doing through you right now, for you or for others, that we can't see. How many business deals have gone south that I'm so thankful for now that I got out of that and I cut my losses, because it would have dragged me down. But in the moment, we're tempted. We don't want to see that, because we want, again, control. We want a cure. We want an answer. Trusting in the Lord and surrendering is a very active thing. It's not a passive thing at all. It's probably the biggest surrendering muscle that we have within us, is to actively seek the Lord for perseverance through those moments, because he will show up. And holding on to his promises too. Write those things down. And marketplace leaders forget this, and I just started doing this recently. When you're about to launch something that's going to impact people and you're helping your society, your communities out, oppression will happen. You need to build an army of prayer warriors to go to battle with you, because we don't battle in flesh. And so we always have to be in tune with that frequency of, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Oh, it's not a coincidence. All right, guys, pray for me, because we're about to go into this battle. And go in boldly. That's what we're called to do. So I think when we're doing that, it's really, again, taking it up and waiting on the Lord too. We know that doesn't mean laziness when we surrender, right? We do everything, all the due diligence that we know how to do, but there's only so much we could do. And the next thing, what I often find is, if we overdo it, that's the temptation to control and then cause things that are going to take years to unravel, because we went and stepped in front of him and before him.
So good. Maybe share, because I'm excited, share a little bit about what's next.
So part of like the discernment, like, is God really in this? And I feel like that's the season I've been going through, which is I see what the Lord's doing. I know that he's called me here specifically for wellness. And I didn't know what that really meant. God cares about our well-being. We're on this journey right now of looking at neurobiotheology and how to roll that out so it will bring relief to people. Business leaders will operate at their optimum level. Elite athletes will unlock truths that will set them free. Actually, a lot of Olympians are already utilizing a lot of these strategies. I have a team of clinicians that we're building out a new platform called the Well Club, and that's what it focuses on. It's mind, body, and spirit. It's holistic. The issues that we deal with come at us fast, they come at us strong, and they're complex. So we have to deal with things holistically. And God told us about the renewal of the mind. We know about the body, and how that's the temple. Research shows that connection, but no one's really been able to bridge the medical anomalies that's happening all over the world that's well published right now, that God's actually doing. And that's where the spirit and the theology comes into play to explain and describe and put on the map the miracles that God's doing. So the power of meditation, the power of prayer, the power of Jesus' practices can be done in a clinical setting. And so that's our mission right now, and that's our heart, is to heal and restore people back to wholeness, because stress is the number one killer right now. And we want to restore the nervous system back to the parasympathetic nervous system. But that's basically to live more stress-free lives. And coincidentally, the antidote is surrender. Those that surrender live longer.